Hello you all. I would like to welcome you to our online webinar introducing the new remote control options within SysAid 8.0 release. My name is Hanan and I'm SysAid Professional Services Manager. This webinar will have three sections. The first one will be introduction by me. Next we will give some technical highlights by Joseph Zargari, which is a team leader in the customer relation department. And last part will be some best practices from Sarah Lav, VP Customer Relation. By the way, our representatives are available for you, for your questions, on our online chat. As you can see on the screen, it's http://webinar.sysaidchat.com, and you have a link on the page that you see right now in front of you. Why using remote control? Probably I say the obvious, but just to be on the safe side that you are all familiar with the advantages of using remote control. Remote control saves time. Saving time today, since today time equals money, it will increase productivity and save money inside your organization. In addition, it will improve the support level that you provide to your end user, and as a consequence will improve the end user satisfaction and again improve IT department productivity as well. The last advantage, and I can state some more advantages, but I choose to state only the three important ones, is 24/7 access, and even over logged off computer means that you can tunnel the workload inside your organization to your convenience time. So why use the RCG, the new remote control gateway of SysAid? First of all, is the platform. The new remote control gateway runs on any device support HTML5, means mobile. Most of mobile devices, or I think the most, all of smartphones now have browser support HTML5, means you can take remote control on asset inside your organization from your mobile. Access means no direct connection required between two ends, and Joseph Zargari, which will speak just in a few minutes, will explain a little bit about the architecture of the new remote control. But it means that the remote control is available over the internet, and two users, administrator and end user, both in two separate places in the world, can make a remote control over the internet using the SysAid platform. And last thing is security. Today the remote control is fully encrypted. By the way, in previous versions you could decide if the connection will be encrypted or not. In this new remote control gateway, we force the connection to be encrypted and increase the level of security of SysAid. Now we would like to show you, no, not this slide, sorry. Now we would like to show you a short movie clip that we prepared, just demonstrating the advantages of using SysAid remote control. I have to say, please do not try this at work, just watch and enjoy. I hope you enjoyed the clip. As I mentioned, not recommended to try this at work, but I hope it gives you an idea of the capabilities of the SysAid remote control. Again, mobile, from your devices, from your smartphones, from your tablets. You can use the ability to remote control your assets. Now I would like to give the mic to Joseph Zargari, which is team leader in the customer relation department. I believe that you all familiar with, most of you at least, I think, familiar with Joseph, who is managing our certification program, taking you into the bits and bytes of SysAid through each and every module, through best practices, troubleshooting, and so on. By the way, not related to this specific webinar, we have a new course starting on September 1. So you still have time to join this course. And Joseph, please.
Thank you. Okay, so I would like to expand some more on what Hanan demonstrated here and discuss a little bit about the old way, the old method of remote control. We call it direct connection, but you can call it peer-to-peer, or basically it's the client computer communicating directly with your workstation, with the administrator workstation. So the left-hand side of this slide demonstrate how this works. Just before we get to remote control, let me just remind you all that the SysAid agent that we have on all client computers is communicating with the SysAid server every 30 seconds to check if it has any task to perform. One of which tasks is to perform a remote control connection. So to complete the picture, the old way required the administrator to go in SysAid, select that asset, ask for a remote control. This would leave a message on the server asking that specific workstation to make a connection back to the administrator's workstation IP address and port. Okay, the next time that workstation connects to the server to check for messages, it will get that request for remote control, and it will make the connection back to the IP address and port that was specified on that message. That means that the direct connection will be made from the client workstation to the administrator workstation. That means that, well, if that's the internal network, no problem. Most of you don't have firewalls running on the internal networks, so that should work. But if the client workstation is located outside of your network, it's on the internet, it's a salesperson, traveling, to customers, to potential customers, then the connection will be made from the outside. You'll need to make sure your network allows connections to be made from that specific, from anywhere in the world actually, to the internal IP address of your administrator workstation on that specific port. That would usually mean configuring the NAT firewalls to do port forwarding for that specific port. That's 4228 by default, to the internal IP address of the administrator workstation. And then when you go to request a remote control connection, you need to make sure you request the client to make the connection back to your external IP address with the port you're using with your system, and that's going to make the connection, hoping that your firewall is configured properly. If you're more than one administrator that needs to have remote access to remote workstations, then you need to make that same firewall rule for each of the administrators. That means a different port for each one. That means that each administrator workstation needs to have the SysAid administrator tools running with the remote control viewer running in the background to get the connection. So that's how we used to work the old way, the direct connection. Today, with the remote control gateway feature, the new remote control method we introduced in SysAid 8.0, what happens is when you request a remote control connection, let me just put the whole screen showing for you, and Let's go over the right-hand side of my slide. The message that is left from the administrator when you go to leave a message for remote control connection stays pretty much the same. Message is stored on the server waiting for that client to connect and get that message. When it gets that message, instead of telling it connect back to this IP address and this port, this is my IP address and port for the administrator, it tells that client, hey, make the connection back to the SysAid server. This is the host of the SysAid server. This is the port. Make the connection back to the SysAid server and stream your screen, basically the remote controls connection back to the SysAid server. SysAid server will do the tunneling between the end user screen to the administrator screen. The administrator will see that connection using the web browser. So in this case, well, I think the biggest difference that you can get from it is the less network configuration that needs to be made. The only thing you need to expose out to the internet is your SysAid server. You're probably already doing that on the HTTP port. That's 8080 by default. If you also want to have remote control connections, we need to add another port specific to this remote control gateway feature, and we're going to need to expose the server to the internet on that port as well, and then that client will be able to make the connection to SysAid from anywhere, anytime. You don't need specific rules for each administrator. It's just one rule for the whole server. Let's go to my next slide. It demonstrates this in a little more graphical way. We have a diagram here of a local network. We have an administrator sitting right here. We have an end user sitting right here, and the administrator needs to help that specific end user. What they do is they go into SysAid, find that user or find that computer, ask to start a remote control connection. At that point, a message is left on the SysAid server to request a remote control connection. It has the information of the server, the IP address or host name and port. In this case, it would be port 443, and that client computer will get that message next time it connects back to the server to get messages. It will make the connection back to the SysAid server and start the remote control connection. In this specific case, with no configuration made to the network, it will make the connection back to the internal IP address or host name on port 443. This is the default port for RCG. We'll discuss this a bit later. Now, this is pretty straightforward. As I said, the internal network, no firewalls inside. You don't need to configure anything. You don't need to open more ports to the server. But let's add to the picture here the external network. Let's add the internet here. Let's say this local network here connected to the internet, and it has an external IP address. Your whole office is running on that external IP address. It's 4.3.2.1. And you have people roaming around the world and getting access to SysAid over the internet. They use this host name, this URL here to access SysAid. It's 4.3.2.1:8080. This is how they access the web interface of SysAid from the internet. So if I'm the same admin right here in the internal network, I want to have access, remote access to end user 2 right here. So I am leaving a message on the server. Just now that message should say, instead of connect back to 10.1.2.3 on port 443, I need to ask the client to make the connection back to the external IP address to 4.3.2.1 on port 443. That connection, well, you need to configure once that the firewall forwards the connection from the external network to the internal IP address of the SysAid server on that port, and then that client will be able to start the connection to the SysAid server, and of course the administrator gets the connection over the web interface on the web browser. That also allows administrators to roam around and still have remote control capabilities. In the old way, if the administrator was, I don't know, in an airport waiting for the flight, trying to work on some tickets, they see a ticket they need a remote control on, and they want to start it, they can't because they're on a public network. They don't have access to the firewall to configure it to get the connections on the remote control port. With the new remote control gateway, the administrator accesses the server on port 8080. So either way, they have access to the server. That's where they're going to get the connection from. That's where they're going to get the streaming of the end user screen. And it doesn't matter if the end user is also located on the internet or the internal network. As long as you have SysAid accessible from the internet on port 8080, the HTTP port, then the admin can start a remote control session. As long as you have SysAid server accessible from the external network, from the internet, on the remote control gateway port, which we'll see in a moment how to define it, but by default it tries to use port 443. As long as you have that configured on your firewall, then you can remote into any machine wherever it's located, as long as it has internet connection. So let's take a look at the remote control gateway configuration. This is the SysAid configuration file. It's named serverconf.xml. I have the path showing on the top left of this slide. We're also going to send you that slide so you could review it offline. And this is the configuration we need to add. We need to add these 5 lines right above the last line, the closing tag for serverconf. This will tell SysAid what network configuration to use for a remote control gateway. But let's talk about what happens if you don't do that. Okay, if you don't do that, it's going to use the host name of the computer SysAid is running on. Meaning it will try to, it will get the computer name and it will ask the client computers to connect back to that server name. It will not work over the internet because that host name is only accessible inside your network. The port will be used, the port that will be used is port 443 by default. It will try that first. If that port is taken by some other application, it will try a different port. It will try 8443. And if that one is taken, it will just choose a random port. I think over 2000 or 1000, it's just going to try a random port and see if it's accessible. It will just use that. So this configuration here tells us well, that's how we tell SysAid, I don't want you to guess anything. I don't want you to choose any, random port. I need to set this on my firewall, so I need to know what the port is constantly, not to have it randomly chosen. Well, the first tag here, RC bind IP, tells SysAid which IP address to bind on internally. If you have more than one IP address on that server and you only want it to listen on one IP address, then you could do that. In most cases, you don't want to do that. You can just leave it blank and put nothing in that tag, and even just don't include that line. You don't even need it. But the other 2 lines are more important for us. RC server host basically is the host name the computer will connect to for remote control connections. I used the external IP address 4.3.2.1. I can also use the host name for that specific connection. That would be helpdesk.acme.com. So this is how it's going to work. And the port, last but not least, make sure you have that port available and no other application using it. I chose to use port 443 here, but you can choose any port. I would maybe advise you to use a port that is commonly used and commonly opened from public networks. I suppose if you go to an airport and use the internet on the airport, you have access to make connections to the internet on port 80, port 443, regular browsing, standard browsing ports. You can choose a random port here, a big number, and it will work as long as the network the client is on actually allows that outgoing connection. It should usually work, but again, try to stick with the standard ports that they are available from anywhere. Okay, this is the configuration. Just to show you how you can tell what's the host name and port number the server is listening on. It's showing on the sysaid.log file, and that's actually my next slide. Actually, let's go to we'll cover that later. Right now, I just want to demonstrate how this works. So I'm going to start by showing this from my PC here. I'm going to use this system. I created this system for the demonstration. Let me just log in. I have this workstation. If I want to start a remote control session, I can just go here. This is where I choose the method. It defaults to SysAid Remote Control Gateway. You can change that, and we'll look at it in a second. This is where I choose the session, which session I want to remote into. In this case, I only have one person, Jerry, logged on to the console. So I can choose that session and click Start. It's going to pop up a request on the end user computer.
Let me help you, Joseph, please.
Okay, so Hanan did the confirmation for us. We're getting the remote control connection on my browser, and it doesn't need any special network configuration. As long as I'm in SysAid, I can start remote control sessions. I can drag it and get the other parts of the screen. I can also zoom out or zoom back in as much as I want, and I can also pop this up to a separate window, so I get it full screen. I can even zoom in and get even bigger image of the screen. So let's close that and look at some other let's look at other ways we can start the remote control sessions from. So I'm gonna, let's say I'll go to a service request. I have service request number 11. In that service request, Jerry submitted a service request about an error while trying to send receive on Outlook. Okay, and he also attached this screenshot. And I'm looking at that screenshot. I know what to do with it, but I know if I have to explain Jerry how to do it himself, it's going to take him hours. It's going to take me hours, several emails and several phone calls to do that. So I can choose I want to do a remote control connection. I can either start it on the asset connected with this service request, or the user that is linked as the submit or request user, or using the action. I think it's just going to go with the user. So this basically takes us to the computer, that same way we did before. You can also go for the user. Sorry, that user isn't linked with the with that computer, but I can I can try to remote into the workstation. Hanan, if you can accept for us. And this is what I'm getting in a pop-up. I can again play with the settings. I can go here and say, okay, under tools, accounts, I can go in and fix the account settings, and that should fix the problem, right? So this is how we connect using a PC. Remember, you need a browser that supports HTML5. Right now it's Firefox, I think version 4 or above. It's Internet Explorer 9, and Chrome also supports HTML5. Now I want to demonstrate how this same remote control feature works for mobile devices. So let me just move back to the camera, and I'm just going to walk over and show you the iPad. This is an iPad I have, and it's basically logged into SysAid using Safari, using the web browser. So I can go into the asset management. Whoops, my fingers are a little big for that, but I can go to asset management, click on that asset, switch to the RC tab, and same as before. I can choose I want to start the session on Jerry's machine. Hanan, if you can approve that connection for us, that would be great. And this is the connection, okay, same way as before. I can even pop it up to the separate window. Click on that. And I'm getting this at a separate window. And I can zoom in using the pinch, and it works just like your regular with your iPhone and your iPads and everything. So I can go up and down, I can just drag it, and this is how I move around the system. I can also, I can also, if I want to drag and drop something, I can just keep my finger on it and then move. Okay, this is how I drag and drop. Okay, and that's pretty much it. One more thing, if you want to do a right click, you can use both fingers together, and it's going to do a right click. My right click went to the right. So this is how this works. You can also use zoom in and zoom out using the plus and minus icons. You can also pop up, if you need your keyboard, you can also pop up your keyboard using this button here. And you also have, I understand that the right part of my iPad was not showing, so let me just zoom out. Okay, and let me just demonstrate this once again. So right click, let's go over to the right click. It's two fingers together. It's going to do a right click. It's going to pick up where your top finger is. Zoom in and zoom out, except of the multi-touch support, you can also use the minus and plus signs. They are right over here. Okay, and you can also pop up your keyboard using the keyboard icon here if you need to use the keyboard. One more thing, I didn't show it to you. It's also there on the, if you go from your PC, it's that icon here for special keystrokes. You can do Control-Alt-Delete if you need, and this is going to go to the security window. I can cancel this one out. This is pretty much it. I can go ahead, I solve the problem. I can just close that and go back to my browser. Again, I can also go from the service request. I can go to my service request list and click on service request number 11. And here I can just choose remote control. It's going to do the same. And Hanan will approve the connection for us, and there it is, same as before. Okay, let's go back. Let me just go back to my seat. And I want to talk about some of the configuration. There really isn't much to it. We already covered the network configuration on on that part. What I do want to show you is under preferences, we have remote control settings. This is where you can define your default method, and the default is SysAid remote control gateway. Okay, you can also set it to always ask, so it won't default into remote gateway. This is everything. This is everything there's into settings here. This and the network configuration we covered on the server conf. I have another example of it right here. In this case, I chose not to bind it to a specific IP, and since I only need access right now from the internal network, I used my internal host name and port 443. Okay, so let's talk about the advantages. I think Hanan already covered some of them, so I'll briefly go over the advantages here. You have better accessibility because any device that has HTML5 support can use this remote control gateway feature. Okay, there's less configuration. You saw I only made a configuration on the remote control gateway on the server conf file, adding you know, the network configuration, and that's it. One firewall configuration would do the trick for all admins, all users, and that's just saving you time and hassle configuring firewalls. It has better security because the encryption is always on. It's you saw how intuitive it was. You know, you're already familiar with your iPhones and iPads. It's so easy. It's just the same multi-touch support, and that's one of the advantages. One last slide I have is how to troubleshoot remote control gateway issues. Most of the issues are network configuration set incorrectly. So look at your server conf file and see how your configuration is set. You can also look at the sysaid.log file. It will show you the network configuration used shortly after the service starts, and this is what you can expect to see. SysAid RCG used the following address. In my case, it's IT001 and port 443. Okay, you can also test the connection, that host and that port, from the client computer on which you're trying to remote into using telnet. So you can type in telnet space, hostname space, and then port. This is what you should get. If you get an error message saying connection refused, then it means that the network won't allow the connection to go over. Furthermore, you can also use the web browser. In my case, I used Internet Explorer. This is what you should get when you go to https://hostname:/port. You should get a notification about untrusted certificate, because this is a self-signed certificate. That's pretty much it on my side. Let's back to you, Hanan.
Yes, thank you, Joseph. It's amazing how every time you speak I learn something new. Thank you very much. Now I would like to call Sarah, which will give us some best practices. Okay? Thank you again, Joseph.
Thank you.
Hello, Sarah. As I mentioned, Sarah, VP Customer Relation here in SysAid, will give us some best practices. So, please, Sarah.
Hello, everyone. It's great that you all join us today. Just that you understand, we are going live with this, so we have some mishaps, and you need to understand this is the second time we're doing it. We're going to do it every month, so I think we are going to get better. So my section is best practices. Our best practices for RCG is, Joseph told you and showed you how you can predefine network configuration server. So our recommendation is to do it. Don't have SysAid guess, just predefine, and SysAid will use what you have configured and what's best work for your network. Initiate remote control. In SysAid release 7.5 we have changed the method. SysAid is initiating remote control. At the beginning SysAid was looking for a computer. Starting SysAid 7.5, SysAid is looking for the online users. So if you would like to save time, just go to the service request, just as Joseph showed you, and look for the online users and automatically find him whenever or wherever he's logged into to whatever computer is currently using. RCG could be installed as an independent server. Our recommendation is first to start using it, of course, and enjoy everything it has to offer. And if you think that there is a problem, please contact our account managers in our customer relation team. Contact your own account manager, and together we will consult and see, and if it's best, we can install the RCG server independently. So just know that there is an option. It's not have to be connected with SysAid server. And the last thing I'm going to talk to you today in regards to best practices is our on-demand service. Just think on everything you need to configure in order to have SysAid available from everywhere to anywhere. So it is available, it is secure, but do you really need to do this? So just think about it. You can enjoy our on-demand services and have us worry for you and have your SysAid available from anywhere to everywhere. Just to summarize everything for today, let's talk about terms. RCG is the term we are using for remote control. When we are talking to our customer relation team, we refer to it as channel. With upgrading to SysAid Release 8, you have got a gift, one channel, which means that one administrator can use it at one time. And this is the second term we have implemented with Release 8, meaning concurrent license. This is the first time SysAid is measuring concurrent license, meaning that I know that you all went to your preferences and you saw that you have one RCG channel. That means that one administrator at one point in time is the only one who can use this channel. So I'm sure you all want all your administrators to be able to use it, so you will need to contact our customer relation team, and that is where our special offer for the day is getting into the picture. For everybody that took the time and joined us today for our webinar, we are offering a special offer, 50% on every RCG license. Tomorrow you're going to receive an email with the recording and a link where you can list yourself, and we will offer you a special offer of 50% on every RCG license. And the last thing, an offer for the day, is if you're considering moving to our on-demand services, also list on that link, and we will offer you also a special offer to move into our on-demand services. So again, it was great to see you all today, and I'm going to put you back to Hanan in order to summarize the session.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Just to summarize things, I would like to thank you all for joining our online webinar regarding the new remote control gateway and new remote control capabilities inside SysAid. I would like to use this stage in order to promote our next webinar next month that will be about SysAid Mobile at all, moving you through the service management module on the mobile and asset management module on the mobile. And we have a new brand feature.
Password service.
No, this is the new brand feature I didn't want to cover, to say, but it will be about password services on the mobile. So thank you, Sarit, for exposing our new surprise.
That's what I'm here for.
A new brand feature of password services from the mobile. Next month, a new webinar just for you. And again, I hope that you enjoyed the webinar, and I hope to see you on our next webinar next month. Thank you very much.